He woke up like every other day. Same strength, same confidence, same belief that he was still unstoppable. Samson stretched his arms, unaware that something eternal had slipped away in the night. The Bible says something chilling. He did not know that the Lord had departed from him. That line should trouble every generation, because the most dangerous emptiness is the one you don't feel. Samson was not an ordinary man. He was born with prophecy hanging over his life, anointed before he took his first breath, chosen while still in his mother's womb. Strength followed him everywhere. Lions fell before him. Armies scattered at his presence. Enemies feared the sound of his footsteps. But slowly, quietly. Samson began to confuse gift with presence. He still had power, but he no longer had purity. He still won battles, but he kept losing discipline. He assumed God would always show up, because God always had, and that assumption cost him everything. Delilah did not steal Samson's strength in one night. It happened in stages. A boundary crossed here, a warning ignored there, a conviction silenced, a secret justified. Until one day, the covenant that marked him was gone, and Samson didn't even notice. That's the tragedy. Not that he lost his hair, not that he lost his strength, but that he lost God's presence and didn't feel the loss. How many people are living like that today? Smiling, but empty. Busy, but hollow. Successful, but dry inside. You still wake up, still go to work, still post online, still attend church. But something sacred has quietly left the room. And like Samson, you say, I'll go out as before. I'll shake myself free. Not realizing that what once worked no longer carries heaven's backing, Samson only realized his emptiness when the chains were already on his hands, when his eyes were gone, when his freedom was lost, when the presence he took for granted was the only thing he truly needed. Sometimes emptiness doesn't announce itself. It waits until strength fails, until joy dries up, until life feels heavy for no clear reason. But here is the mercy in the story. God was not done with Samson. In the darkness of a prison, with no applause, no hair, no reputation, Samson prayed again. Not for fame, but for presence. And God returned. Because the God who leaves when ignored is also the God who returns when sought. This is the question the story leaves us with. Are you strong, or are you filled? Because you can have talent without God, success without peace, noise without meaning. But only the presence of God makes a soul truly alive. Don't wait for chains to discover you're empty. Seek His presence before you wake up one day and realize it's gone. Let me share with you a true-to-life story. He was young when he first believed life would bend easily in his favor. Not arrogant, just confident. He worked hard, planned carefully, and trusted his intelligence. He believed effort was enough. If he stayed disciplined, focused, and relentless, life would eventually cooperate. And for a while, it did. In his early 20s, things looked promising. He finished school. He found work. He moved into his own place. Nothing extravagant, but respectable. People admired his drive. Family members spoke about his future with confidence. Friends looked at him and said, "You'll do well in life." And he believed them. He believed success was a formula. Plan well, work hard, stay consistent. God existed in his world, but quietly, somewhere in the background. Not rejected, not denied, just postponed. God was for Sundays, for emergencies, for moments when things went terribly wrong. Life, he thought, was something he could manage. Years passed. He started cutting corners, unequally yoked, shady deals. Adultery and clubbing were seen as catching fun. Unfaithfulness set in. At the same time, responsibilities grew heavier, expectations increased, bills arrived without mercy, competition intensified, and slowly, almost invisibly, something began to shift. The same effort that once produced results now produced exhaustion. The same strategies stopped working. Doors he expected to open stayed shut. At first, he blamed circumstances, the economy, the system, bad timing, other people, so he pushed harder. He woke earlier, slept less, took on more projects, applied for more opportunities. Maybe if he just did more, something would change. But it didn't. Failures began to stack quietly. Not dramatic failures, just enough to drain hope. Rejected applications. Businesses that never stabilized, plans that collapsed halfway, relationships that started strong but ended abruptly. And the most painful part was this: he was doing everything right, yet nothing was working. Late one night, he sat alone in his office. The radio played softly, but he wasn't listening. His hands rested on the table. For the first time in a long while, he felt something he couldn't explain: emptiness, not sadness, not anger, just a hollow silence inside him. And without planning to, without rehearsing the words, he whispered, "God, where are you?" The question surprised him. It wasn't accusatory. It was tired, honest, vulnerable. Nothing dramatic happened. No voice from heaven, no sudden breakthrough, just silence. But in that silence, something uncomfortable surfaced. A realization he had been avoiding for years. God hadn't left. He had. Not suddenly, but gradually and rebelliously. He thought back and saw it clearly. Decisions made without prayer. Plans drawn without asking God. Struggles carried alone. God had become a distant observer instead of a daily companion. An emergency option instead of a guiding presence. He had been asking God to bless plans God was never invited into. That night, he couldn't go home immediately. He sat there in his office. For the first time in years, he stopped trying to fix his life. He stopped analyzing, stopped strategizing, stopped giving excuses. And he broke down. Tears came, not loud, not dramatic, but heavy. Tears of surrender, tears of exhaustion, tears of truth. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. "I tried, but I tried without you. I messed up. It wasn't a polished prayer. It wasn't theological. It was raw and real. For the first time, he wasn't asking God for success. He was asking for forgiveness. The next morning, life didn't magically improve. Problems didn't disappear. Bills were still there. Uncertainty remained. But something inside him had shifted. He slowed down. He opened a Bible he hadn't touched in years. The pages felt unfamiliar. He prayed awkwardly at first. Short prayers, clumsy words. But he stayed. He didn't rush. He didn't multitask. He simply stayed. And gradually something returned. Peace came before progress. Clarity before change. He still worked hard, but not desperately. He planned, but not anxiously. When doors closed, he didn't panic. When delays came, he didn't spiral. He began to sense something he hadn't felt in a long time. God was near. Opportunities started to appear. Not rushed ones, not flashy ones, but right ones. Relationships stabilized. Decisions became clearer. His life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became ordered. And that's when he understood something profound. The presence of God doesn't remove all struggles. It removes the loneliness inside them. Looking back, he realized his biggest mistake wasn't failure. It wasn't lack of effort. It wasn't even poor planning. It was living as if he could move forward without God. Now, as a day stood before him, he made a quiet decision, one that didn't need applause or announcement. "If your presence does not go with me," he whispered again, "don't send me." Not into success, not into opportunity, not into the future, because he had learned the hard way. Progress without God becomes pressure. Success without God becomes emptiness. And effort without God becomes exhaustion. But when God walks with you, Even the unknown feels safe. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of what lay ahead, because this time, he wasn't walking alone.